Hi everybody, so today I'm going to be showing you my philosophy bookshelf, which is here, and obviously I'm a first year philosophy student, coming to the end of the first year actually. My exams are in 5 weeks now. And these are the books that I have predominantly used this year to help me with my studies basically. As you can see, I just panned in there on River Cottage Veg, which obviously couldn't have really helped me during my first year of philosophy. There are a few anomalies here that I couldn't fit on my general bookshelf, so if you see anything quite strange here, then that explains that. Okie dokie, we'll start in the usual fashion. We will begin with the Cambridge Dictionary of Philosophy, which my very kind and very intelligent friend Casey sent to me all the way from America. Because when I started my philosophy degree, I really didn't have all that much money, and I really needed to just give a real boost to my philosophy bookshelf, basically. So he furnished me with several very good and very useful philosophy books that have come in really handy. So thanks, Casey, for that. And I could definitely recommend the Cambridge Dictionary of Philosophy. It's really, really very good. So as you can see, the next section focuses predominantly on Plato. So we've got the Republic in two different translations, Theaetetus, a Routledge. Do you say Routledge or Routledge? I'm not really sure. Plato and the Republic, some other Plato texts, ethics, and an introduction to Plato there. As you can see here, these are actually ones that don't fit currently on the bookshelf, but this series is really, really good for philosophy revision. They are the SCM Briefly series, and they have them in all, on all different texts in philosophy. So this is one on Plato's Republic. This is one on the Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle. I do have, oops, just lost that behind the back of there. I do have them on some other texts as well, and I can really recommend them. Basically, the first half of them basically summarises and paraphrases the text you're studying, and the second half analyses it. It's very succinct and very brief, as the name suggests, but all the same incredibly useful as a condensed revision guide. Okay, here we go. Now we have Descartes, who formed the basis of my introductory module. As you can see, we've got Descartes' Baby, which is not actually really about Descartes. It's actually a Paul Bloom. He's a psychologist at Yale, and he basically studies child and baby development, and yeah, I haven't actually read it yet, so sorry, Paul Bloom. Another introduction book, we have Meditations on First Philosophy, which if any of you have read is incredibly good, but something that you will necessarily need to argue with. Cambridge Companion, The Project of Pure Inquiry by Bernard Williams, an absolutely fantastic text and resource. Descartes by John Cottingham of the University of Reading, another incredibly good book, so many useful phrases in there, expressions, ideas that have helped me with my essays. Another one by Routledge, Gary Hatfield, a really good book. This one was one that my tutor recommended to me, Demons, Dreamers and Madmen, which I can really recommend. Some interesting insights into Descartes. The rest of this is on Hume, who I actually didn't really study this year in all that great depth. I will be studying him next year in immense depth, but to be quite honest with you, the only ones I really had to read this year were his Ethics, and I read An Inquiry Concerning Human Understanding. Absolutely love Hume. I really can't wait to get to know him a bit better. I feel kind of sad that I neglected him slightly this year in preference of other philosophers, but I'm kind of saving him up, if you like, so don't think I'm like a hater of Hume, because I'm not. Here we have a couple of epistemology books. So I am doing epistemology this year, which I can't say has been my favourite module by any stretch, but it basically introduces you to the theory of knowledge, ways of knowing, theories of justification, what constitutes knowledge, all the rest of it. If that sounds a bit over your head, then just look it up or something. So I can really recommend this introduction book. It's actually brilliant. That's what kind of got me started and has really helped me this year. Uncertainty by Wittgenstein. What is this thing called? Knowledge by Duncan Pritchard. This is an absolute tome, and to be fair, it's a slight waste of money because I've hardly read any of it. To be honest, I've really been very picky in my, epistemological studies this year, and I've kind of just stuck to the topics that I preferred best. So most of my essays are on the same sort of thing. In specific, skepticism, which has probably been the most fascinating part of epistemology for me because, the idea that we might know nothing even about being alive or being in the external world or knowing nothing about the external world is clearly a fascinating question that begins with sort of Plato and Sextus Empiricus and then Descartes. Delancey's Contemporary Epistemology hasn't really been one of my favourite texts. It's quite difficult to read, it's very complex. Certainly not for the beginner. I actually did begin by reading this. I think this is the one Casey sent me. And my goodness, it's quite, it screws your head in a little bit if you're not that familiar with the content or the subject matter. Simon Blackburn, What Do We Really Know? And the Oxford Companion to Philosophy, which I must say is probably my favourite companion to philosophy. My mum actually bought me another one of these for my Easter present because she didn't know I already had it, which is down here. Where is it? There it is. She bought me like a brand new one. So I might need to give that away or sell it or something because I don't really need to, and it's actually a really useful resource. So if any of you are interested in it, then let me know. Okay, so the second part of this shelf, it's only a 3-part bookshelf, quite a condensed one really, begins with Kant. If any of you know me, you'll know that I'm a massive Kant fancier. I think that the sort of topics of my later degrees, my MA and my PhD, will probably or maybe be on Kant or Kant's ethics. So we've got Kant's Theory of Freedom, Kantian Ethics by Alan Wood. Really, really brilliant. If you're studying Kant this year or about to study it next year, I can thoroughly recommend, probably above and beyond any of these other books, Kantian Ethics by Alan Wood. I haven't actually read this one yet, Kant and the Critique of Pure Reason. We didn't study the Critique of Pure Reason this year. I studied that in my 3rd year. Because basically this year I'm studying Kant's ethics rather than his metaphysics. This is one of those briefly series again, but on the groundwork of the metaphysics of morals. Really bloody good. Creating the Kingdom of Ends by Korsgaard is awesome. To be honest, if I'm honest, I have actually spent a right fortune on books this year. I'm really not into going to the libraries. I know I should, and I know they're there for that reason, so that you don't end up spending an absolute fortune on books. But to be honest, I really like to get to know my books, and I just get stuck in, and I like to underline and write notes, and I can't just read at a distance. I have to really get quite involved. So we've got Sullivan's Introduction to Kant's Ethics, we've got Kant on Moral Autonomy. This was a bloody expensive book, actually. It was like 60 quid or something in Blackwell. So yeah, but it is actually fantastic. It's got some amazing essays in there on moral autonomy. So yeah, if you're interested in reading about kind of Kant's theory of freedom in relation to his ethics, then definitely get your hands on that, or I don't know, maybe I can send you it when I'm done with it. Reading philosophy, this has been one of our key texts this year. Slightly boring, slightly introductory, but hey ho, it's been quite interesting in a way. This should really be on the thing downstairs actually, because, well, that's where I keep my short introductions. But this one is on German philosophy, which is one of my favourite, aspects of philosophy, I guess. To be honest, I'm much, well, am I? I want to say I'm more into continental philosophy than I am analytic, but I'm probably at too early a stage in my philosophical career to really make that statement yet. Nevertheless, I am very interested in Arthur Schopenhauer. This is Better Never to Have Been. This is actually a treatise in antinatalism by David Benatar. As you may or may not know, I am an antinatalist, and I really do think the arguments against the bearing of children are very compelling indeed, and I would really recommend that you all read this book, basically. The ideas kind of come from what I don't start with, but Arthur Schopenhauer is a big promoter of the antinatalist theory. So Schopenhauer, Cambridge Companion, we have The World as Will and Representation, and then this one, which is a selection of Schopenhauer's writings, basically sort of, well, key selections, as you can see there, from all of his texts there. So that's really good if you want like an introduction to Schopenhauer. Okay, so the next section we have is on Aristotle. If you're wondering why this doesn't run in like historical order or chronological order, I can't really explain that other than this is just how I kind of started shelving the books when I got them, and yeah, I don't know, I've kind of got used to them being in this order. So we have Aristotle now. So we've got Aristotle's Ethics by David Bostock. I haven't actually read this yet, Aristotle and the Politics, because I didn't study the politics this year. And I don't know when I will study the politics. Probably when I study political philosophy, I guess. We have Sarah Brodie, Ethics with Aristotle. This is a really, really good book. If you're studying Aristotle's Ethics this year or next year or whenever, this is a really good one to get your hands on. But I do think it was quite expensive. I think it was about £40. So yeah, Aristotle, the Nicomachean Ethics, obviously the key text really if you're studying Aristotle's Ethics, apart from the Eudemian Ethics. Actually, this Routledge book on Aristotle has been pretty helpful. I remember when I first started my Aristotle module, this book pretty much introduced me to the whole thing, as well as like lectures and stuff, but this was brill. So now we're moving on to kind of, well, this is Alistair MacIntyre's Short History of Ethics. And then we've got a bit of Mill here, slightly political philosophy vein going on. So we've got Mill on utilitarianism, Mill on liberty, another briefly series, Mill's utilitarianism. Then we've got Rousseau's Social Contract, Hobbes' Leviathan, Michael Sandel. Absolutely love Michael Sandel. I think he's brilliant. If you ever saw his Justice series broadcast by Harvard University, then you will know that he's a really compelling speaker and thinker, and his style of like teaching is just so interesting. I wish he was like a lecturer of mine. He's brilliant. I haven't actually read this yet. I did start reading it, but then I kind of got waylaid with what I'm actually studying, because I'm obviously not studying political philosophy this year. And then we have a couple of like introductory books that kind of started me off in my philosophical education. So I read these about a year and a half ago now. So we've got Simon Blackburn on Think and Being Good. So this is just a general introduction to philosophy that I can really, really, really recommend. And this is an introduction to ethics, which is exactly the same, I should say, as the very short introduction to ethics that Oxford University Press publish. So they are actually the same text. Couple of Nigel Warburton's here. I think he's actually a really interesting and helpful writer. So we've got the classics, Thinking from A to Z, Philosophy the Basics, and Philosophy the Essential Study Guide. I can really recommend these. Really quite accessible, sort of fairly short, succinct, to the point, just really handy actually, especially if you're a beginner and you just want a really easy an easy introduction into the subject. To be honest, philosophy doesn't really do a shallow end. It is pretty much into the deep end, which was quite overwhelming for me at first, because I hadn't really had much experience of reading or writing philosophy apart from what I did on the IB. So did get quite a shock, but you get used to it pretty quickly, and actually you develop very quickly in terms of critical thinking and, I don't know, the ability to just analyse philosophy and actually write essays that are appropriate to philosophy, because believe you me, if you've been an English literature student, you can pretty much forget everything you've ever learned, because you don't write essays like that in philosophy. Okie doke. So this is some stuff which I'm not really studying this year. It's just on this shelf for fun. Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex, Existentialism and Humanism by Sartre. This is actually my first ever philosophy book that my theory of knowledge teacher gave me on the IB because he thought I had real promise, sort of intellectually and philosophically. So that was his little gift to me. Nietzsche. I do really like Nietzsche. I'm very interested in studying Nietzsche. I haven't studied him yet. Study him in my final year. So really looking forward to that. Beyond Good and Evil and Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And a couple of logic books here. These two Casey sent to me because I was actually meant to be studying philosophy this year, but I've deferred it to next year. So I got the Introducing Logic graphic guide, and A.C. Grayling's Introduction to Philosophical Logic, and then A.J. Ayer's Language, Truth and Logic, which I have read absolutely none of, so one is totally ignorant about things like that. Okay, finally to bottom shelf territory, and on this shelf you will find that it's rather hodgepodge, so if there's anything slightly odd, do forgive. I needed storage, and to be honest, these two kind of encapsulate my first year pretty well. So we've got the Oxford Dictionary of English, which is obviously the best dictionary of English that I know of. I'm willing to take other recommendations, however. Obviously this one that my mum bought me for Easter, bless her heart. This, which Casey also sent me, what a guy, by A.C. Grayling. It's basically a kind of introduction, well, could you say that? Yeah, I suppose, an introduction to many philosophical subjects, basically, because philosophy has so much to it. If you want to know about philosophy, then you need to be more specific, really, because there are like loads of branches of philosophy. Companion to Ethics, edited by Peter Singer. Peter Singer is a real inspiration of mine. I'm not actually a utilitarian, but his work on animal rights, it's just so inspiring, and I'm thankful to him for having made animal rights such a priority, and I love his sort of theories and ideas about giving to charity as well. So we've got Peter Singer's Practical Ethics as well. We've got Miranda Fricker and Samuel Guttenplan's Reading Ethics, which is basically like this reading philosophy book with extracts from various philosophers, and what the book does is it basically gives you the extract and has like a key next to it. I'll show you actually. Let me show you. I've already been here, clearly. So we will look at, so this is like part of Kant's groundwork, as you can see, and basically at each little marker in the analysis, or the commentary as it's called, they basically refer to each point and then write a sort of interesting, fairly interactive commentary on it. I haven't actually used it that much this year. I haven't really needed to be quite honest, but clearly they're very well written books and very useful if you're kind of starting out in philosophy. So I do have two of these books, so if anyone wants one, let me know. I have Ray Langton's Sexual Solipsism, which is basically a feminist interpretation of the rights and wrongs, but predominantly wrongs, of pornography. We have Peter Unger's Ignorance, which, if you want to read a really powerful, convincing argument for skepticism, which isn't like other arguments for skepticism, then this is a really interesting one. It goes, it comes at it from a more sort of linguistic perspective. Locke and Berkeley, which I'm studying next year, so I haven't actually read these. Barry Stroud, The Significance of Philosophical Skepticism, bit of epistemology. Stephen Hawking, Les Poètes Français, really ancient book this, actually, quite interesting. Look at this, this is 1899. I think it's so sweet. I would actually read some to you, but I might just let myself down with the accent and all. Oh Christ, whatever. Then we just got a bit of random stuff. Imiku and Saturday, pretty good novel that. The Art Study Guide, I don't even know why I have that, it's just boring. Another Nigel Warburton book. Evelyn Waugh's Brideshead Revisited. Clearly this is going to rather non-philosophical territory now. Ethics, Wilkie Collins' Woman in White. Another of my favourite novels, Philip Larkin's Jill. In fact, these are my favourite novels, to be honest. Brideshead Revisited and Jill by Philip Larkin. They're just amazing. A couple of food books there. Pretty good food books. A Dickens biography. 59 Seconds by Richard Wiseman. And then some issues of Philosophy Now. And Information is Beautiful. So, my friends, that is really that. I hope that's been interesting for you and not incredibly boring. I don't like to wax lyrical about philosophy because I know it's a pretty esoteric discipline and I don't know, probably lots of you don't really care or know that much about it. And yeah. But anyway, I think that kind of summarises that, and yeah, I hope you liked the video. Cheerio!